Music matters.
Yo,
Nemo Lakes.
what is up?
Thank you for doing this for the first time. There's no other time before this. There wasn't a run before this or anything.
Take one.
Take one.
I'm not going to touch that chord ever again.
This is take one. I promise. I swear. How you feeling, man?
Dude, doing well, dude. Freaking still yerbed up.
Still yerbed up?
Yeah.
From the first run?
Yeah, dude. Still yerbed up.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. So you don't drink caffeine like at all?
Not at all. This, for background, I took like a big yerba mate right before this interview. And
I love how you say
buzzing.
took, like it's a drug.
Yeah, no, I took a yerb. Popped a yerb. Popped a yerb, I'm sweating.
Popped the yerby, now I'm floating.
Yeah.
Oh, bars sponsor us? What? What? So how you feeling, man? You got an album coming out, and you said 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks, yeah.
You
2
excited?
Weeks. Dude, yeah. Very stoked for the album. I've been working on it for like over 2 years. It's probably the most important thing I've ever put together. Very excited, very nervous for the rollout, very nervous for the show that I'm doing that night too. But overall, so stoked to release it.
Do the nerves sometimes overwhelm the excitement, or vice versa?
I don't know, dude. Like my whole thing is like I'll just get into my head like when I get nervous, and I'll go and like alone, and I'll just like play the album, and I'll like visualize the night, and I'll visualize all that, and I just get super excited, and then it's like the nervousness goes away. I'm fully like, it's gonna, for background, I'm doing a album release party that night, and I know full on like once the last song comes on, I'm gonna start crying. For real.
Wow.
Like I know, yeah, like I'm like, it's like it means that much to me. I'm super stoked for it.
That's so beautiful, bro. That is like, I feel like I think about this a lot, actually. I feel like there are certain points in like your artistic career that will always mean more to you than anything else that will come because it was a first time. Like, for example, bro, like think about it like this, right? It's like, let's say in 10 years, and I hope this happens, and I believe in you, but I'm saying, let's say in 10 years, like you're like a multi-platinum selling artist, hundreds of thousands of plays, like millions of followers, whatever. You achieve all this success. You will never be able to put out your first album ever again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's even though there's only like a very small subset of people that even know it's releasing, like the fact that it is such a huge deal. It's like the first body of work is such a milestone. And like I've done little EPs and stuff, but I consider this my first real body of work.
Cause you never put music out under any other names, right? But I know you made music under way before Nemo, right?
Yeah, before Nemo, I put like music out on SoundCloud and stuff. I had this. You'll never find it now because I like wiped it off the internet. But I had a
That's
producer.
what you think. I'm a Nardwar. I'm Nardwar, bro. I will literally find it.
I had a producer name I went by as the 37th. That was that. I did that but that was like from age 12 to age like 16.
Oh, wow. That's so early. You were producing then?
But yeah, well, I was, dude. Like I think like in 7th grade, 7th grade, I got super into J Dilla and got
so like lo-fi.
Yeah, I got super into it was like lo-fi beats. It was like very sample heavy, and I got super into J Dilla. I got super into at the time he went by Felnuts, so now he's an artist named Felly, and he had these like videos on YouTube where like he was like using his machine and he was making all these sample beats, and I was like, I want to be like that guy. Like I want to make beats. And got like in like 7th grade, my parents bought me like a Native Instruments machine for Christmas, and like that was like I was making the worst soul sample beats ever.
Or is there a lot of samples on the project?
None.
When did you pivot? Cause I mean, okay, so like for a bit of a background, I became familiar with you when I saw you play a show with Lance, who I live with, like one of my best friends. But I saw you play a show with him. And what kind of provoked me about your music, I don't think I've ever told you this, was like, it felt like hip hop, but with live instrumentals, but something that wasn't boom bap. And I felt like that was kind of rare, because I always feel like when you have hip hop with live instrumentals, it often like deteriorates, not in a negative way, but it boils down to feeling like boom bap.
Yeah.
And your music didn't feel like boom bap to me, because it didn't really feel like rap in a lot of ways. So when did like you kind of switch to making music with organic instrumentals? Dude,
well, so like the whole thing is I really got into music in my time when I lived in Texas between 8th grade and I graduated high school there. Basically, like I started like releasing beats on SoundCloud, and I was like talking to girls at the time. I was like, yeah, like I make beats. And then I was the only person in my whole school that did anything creatively. Like no one made music. No one did any film or anything. And like the same girls that I like were talking to started like clowning me like at school. They're like, he's like, oh, he makes beats, blah blah blah, and I got like super insecure about it, and I just stopped making beats and telling people that I made beats for a long time. But like I still had like such a passion for music. Like I'd still go to the record store like every weekend. I'd make my parents drive me, and eventually like got a little keyboard and got a guitar. And in those like 2 or 3 years of me being super insecure about making music, I like took the time to try to teach myself guitar and piano and actual instruments. And by the time like I was about to graduate high school, unsure what I wanted to do with my life, I just started making beats again. But I had the background of an instrumentalist now, and that's when it kind of transitioned.
So do you do any like, are any of the loops you use now organic, or do you do it all in a DAW?
It's I mean it's all the entire thing. Like everything that you'll hear on the album besides like track 2, which I produced with another producer, it's like all I played everything.
Oh, okay. So it's mostly organic.
Yeah. It's almost all like just me in my room playing everything. I didn't like. There's no. The only like samples I'd get off like Splice or like a kick or a snare. Yeah. You know, it's all written and played.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I am making a pretty big presumption here. But okay, so I have a couple questions that are leading up to something that I want to ask you. Where do you grow up in Texas?
So yeah, high school I went to school in Texas at like a super small school, like in a rural area outside of Dallas-Fort Worth.
Okay, so this is backing up like my further question. Was hip hop not a thing in like your town or like the place you grew up that was like heavily accepted?
No, dude, it was interesting. Like all of the kids were. This was like around the era of, like, you know, like the notorious like XXL freshman class with like Lil Uzi Vert.
It's like when I got obsessed with music.
People loved that shit. And there was like I forget the name of it now, but was always like a small festival where like there was those type of artists that would come out, and like all the kids like no exaggeration, like my school was pretty much like just white kids. And like but those kids really fucked with rap. And like my first,
as most suburban white kids do. Yeah.
The first concert I ever went to was with my friends, and it was peak Cold Lake, Minnesota, peak Black Beatles, fucking Ray Shremmerd and Lil Yachty.
That is a period of time, man.
Yeah, that was the first show I went to ever, and like I remember like they played Swang, and like it was like everyone put your arms around everyone, and everyone's
Sway
just like,
Lee,
no, shit was crazy, but yeah, that was. I don't think it was accepted by like the older people, but at least like the kids in my school were all just that was the SoundCloud era.
That's so interesting to me, because like when you said like, you know, like you were making beats and people were kind of making fun of you for it, that was where my mind jumped. It was like, oh, this probably sounds like a place where like, you know, like that kind of music wasn't always encouraged.
Oh no, I think it was more of just like people were making like fun of like actually creative expression.
Yeah.
Which is even more fucked.
Yeah. but that's a common thing in like small towns. I mean, like I've talked to a lot of people that say very similar things. It's not that like you were discouraged or not, I guess discouraged isn't the right word, but it's not like they were making fun of you. It's like they were making fun of what you were doing.
Yeah.
And you know, and a lot of that comes out of jealousy, I feel like, but it's also just kids being kids. Yeah. You know?
No, like I remember I had over Christmas, one of our family friends from high school, they flew out to where my family lives now in Arizona, and we were having dinner with them, and all the moms get together and say, "Oh, do you remember that one kid that sang in Lil Emma's high school class? What was the kid's name?" It was like, oh, Tyler. And it was like, yeah, oh, Tyler. Yeah, I wonder how he's doing out in L.A. If he's still trying to do the music thing. Yeah, I don't know. Like people will just talk, and it's like, oh shit, like I didn't get into sales, and now they're mad.
Was it like that? Like, was your town like very? Okay, I need you to like clear something up for me. Is Texas a southern state, or is it like middle America? Because I always feel like it's middle America.
Texas is its own thing.
It's like its own thing, right?
It's like if you go like to southeast Texas, it's like the South. But like I lived like a 2-hour drive from Oklahoma, which I think you could consider the Midwest.
Oh, okay.
But Texas is Texas. Like, I don't think you can compare it to anything else. The people in there are like not American; they're Texan.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very much like a separate entire thing.
And there wasn't any kind of like a scene or like any kind of music in the town you grew up in, like in terms of like local shows. Like, what you said the closest city was Dallas?
Yeah, like I was in between Dallas and Fort Worth. There was, I mean, at least at the time, I think there's now a little bit more of a scene in Dallas, but out of all like for example, like Houston has a very, very great hip hop scene.
Yeah, Travis Scott.
Like Austin has a lot of like a very cool indie scene. Dallas like doesn't have as much. It's not as much of a city that really goes heavy on the arts, and they have a lot, like they have a hip hop scene now, and there's stuff that I wasn't necessarily involved in. I don't mean to shit on Dallas for whatever their art scene is, because I wasn't involved, but it is not as prominent as a lot of other major cities.
Wow. Okay. But how did you get into it? Were you an internet kid?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, like it was how I kind of got into all that stuff was like typical, like Brockhampton comes out, and I was like, I want to be in like a Brockhampton.
How close were you to where they're from?
Oh, like 5 hours probably.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, all that came out, and I remember like this is a deep cut. Will be a Nardwuar thing one day. But I was in this like group that was called. We never ended up releasing anything. It was just this Discord chat called like Broadband, and it was like literally.
That's a hard name.
Yeah,
that's fire.
Yeah, we all met in the comment section of a Brockhampton video. And it was like a group of like 20 people.
I just got chills.
Yeah, it was like a group of 20 people, and everyone was talking about like, oh, like when we move out to LA together, like we're gonna do all this stuff. And like, I was at the time, I was like, I know I'm gonna move out to LA, because by the time that happened, I was set on coming to school out here. But by the time that all of that happened, I was like the only person that ended up moving out here.
But consider this, right?
Yeah. Hell of them were in Fresno.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's crazy too. Have you ever been to Fresno?
No, I don't know if I plan to.
Yeah,
but if I drive through, I will.
Shout out to Jack Sprawling.
Yeah.
No hate on Fresno, but Fresno is one of the most interesting places in the world.
Yeah.
And not in a good way. Like, you ever been to Stockton?
No, but shout out the Diaz brothers.
Oh, shout out to Stockton.
Yeah.
Shout out the Diaz brothers, EBK doing their thing out there. Cool rap collective. But anyway, where I was going with that. Imagine an alternative universe, right? Because Kevin Abstract moved to LA like before, or no, well, they moved somewhere else before they moved to LA.
It was like, it's where Texas State University is. I think it's San something.
San Andreas.
San Andreas.
Yeah, San Andreas. There's a song on Iridescence called San Andreas. Yeah. But he had a solo career like way before Brockhampton.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a Nemo Lake arc in the next couple years, and then there's the broadband comeback. Like maybe that happens.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But how crazy would it be? Because think about this, right? Like Brockhampton met on a Kanye form.
Yeah.
What if the next Brockhampton meets on a Brockhampton form?
Dude, I'm sure like that's
it probably happened. It's probably happening.
I mean, like, yeah, I'm sure that's probably already happened, dude. I think that's like the fucking you know, like Jaylani Aryeh, R&B singer.
Before
before, I'm pretty sure
the internet.
Those kids did the same thing.
Jelani Aryeh?
Yeah, like there was a whole group there that I think.
That's not a thing anymore. They're called the internet, or not the internet. What were the internet was the Steve Lacy group. What's that's gonna kill me. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, those kids were like a similar thing.
Oh, they met on a Brockhampton forum.
Yeah, I think so.
There's got to be some success story that happens from people meeting on a Brockhampton forum.
Yeah,
that would be so cool because it comes full circle.
Yeah,
I recently saw like the other day. Not the other day, but a month ago or whatever, when Brockhampton broke up, there was somebody posted like the original form where like Kevin had like posted like, does anybody want to start a band?
Yeah.
And that gives me chills. I'm like the biggest Brockhampton stan ever. I could go on forever about Brockhampton.
Yeah.
Was that like a wave, like when you were kind of coming up out of Texas? Was that like a thing that kind of changed shit from where you were from? Like, were people listening?
No, dude. It was like, I don't mean to like over exaggerate anything when I say like I don't know, no one from my school at least, or like the schools surrounding me were like really into all that like kind of alternative stuff. It's like, it's a very, I don't mean like conservative, like what you would expect like conservative to be, but like it's a very much like a status quo place.
Like suburban.
Yeah. It's a very suburban status quo place.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So the album you got coming out, you said it's a labor of like how long? You said like over 2 years at this point?
Yeah, I'd say the first song I made on it was probably like May of 2020.
So it's been around, yeah. It seems like from an outside perspective that it's pretty concept driven, right?
Super concept driven.
Do you want to explain that?
Yeah. So in July of 2020, one of my best friends passed away unexpectedly.
Sorry.
No, it's okay now. But it was super, super tough. And it was like in the middle of COVID too. So me and a lot of friends, we came back to LA like after the first couple months. We're like, we're just gonna ride this out here because we didn't want to be stuck like inside. We already had signed leases for the next year while COVID happened. And we didn't get out of them.
Right when you were moving.
Yeah. So this is yeah. So like this kid moved us into our apartment. We had like 2 weeks where it was like me and him and my girlfriend and my roommates. There's like this like solid group because like you didn't want to go hang out with a lot of people. It's like a solid group of like 10 to 15 people that we were just like every day together. And then like 2 or 3 weeks into that, he died. And then it was like, oh, fuck, like, you can't even leave your house. You can't get a job. You can't go to the beach. You can't go to school. You got to sit inside. And it was like the culmination of sitting inside and like dealing with this loss as well as dealing with how fucked the world was for like so long. And like literally you couldn't do anything but like sit and just like fucking get fucked up with your friends. And like it ended up being like a super like transformative period of like going from, oh shit, like we're a kid, like we're all just like kids in college, like and then it just went like, oh shit, like one of us died, and it's like I gotta get older, like, and I gotta fucking grow up,
yeah,
change the way that I look at the world and everything. And it's very much, it's dedicated to Colin, but the album as a concept is like a personal growth journey through outside, like coming out of youth and coming of age and learning how to deal with trauma and, you know, like rising above and becoming a bigger and better person.
So it's almost like a coming of age story, like a growth type thing.
Yeah.
Was that, so when you started making these songs, was that the idea for them? Was it like, I want these to be on an album about growing up, or did you make them and that's kind of just what was coming out?
So the album got its name, All the Cool Kids Die, from the song that I wrote the week after he died. And the lyric is like, all the cool kids die because they don't have anything to lose. They ain't got nothing to lose. And so
wait, explain that.
So it's I wish I was as cool as you. I wish when I die I could be an angel too. I wish I wasn't a fool because all the cool kids die because they ain't got nothing to lose. And that was the beginning of the verse, and that lyric really stuck with me. Of all the cool kids die because they ain't got nothing to lose. And I was like, okay, I have this album that I knew from like the beginning. I want to dedicate a project to my friend, and it kind of started. The first song I ever made on it was Piggy Bank, which was the week or two before he died, and then everything else after that was like I knew I wanted to have a project. I wanted to tell a story of what was happening in my life at the time, because at this time it's still the most transformative period of my life. I knew that I wanted to tell that story, but the story was told as it was happening. And it's just a lot of just hours of sitting and being in my head and experiencing things with my friends, and the culmination of everything that I went throughout that period is all kind of like hodgepodge to a series of personal anecdotes. And each song is like, it's not necessarily like a cumulative order. I don't really talk about like specific events after his death. It's more of just like every single song is a little snapshot of my head at the time, of like how I'm thinking, how my personal philosophy is changing, and like what is how everything is kind of happening in my head.
Do you feel like you grew up in the process of making the project?
For sure. I mean, I think if you work on a project for that long in this period of life, you end up doing that. And like I think like if I were to like point out the track list and talk about which one, like the order of which I made them, which isn't the exact.
Do you want to?
Yeah, sure, I could do that.
I think that'd be interesting, because I'm trying to like formulate in my head like the story and what was going through your mind when you were doing that.
Yeah, so I'll go through it. I'm pulling up the album right now on my phone. So also,
by the time this is out,
shout out AG.
Shout out to AG Club.
Shit.
Fire.
Okay, so we'll go through it. The first song I made out of all of them, this is all the individual tracks. Mm-hmm. First one I made out of all of them is Piggy Bank. And Piggy Bank is my most kind of rap centric song. It's like the hardest one, like a little bit boom bappy,
super
all that.
Fire.
The whole point of that song is like the first line in the first track line in the verse is, kids always act tough till they get their head rocked. And the entire song is like, man, like kids always try to, like, I would always, for a lot of time in my life, I would always just try to act tough and like be this person that I wasn't. And it's me making fun of myself
Dude,
for
same.
acting tough when I'm not.
I relate to that.
Yeah. And so it's early in the track list. Like it's like after the first song, and it's the first song I made of like, okay, this is me opening up of, I try to be someone who I'm not sometimes. And it's like early in the track of like, this is me showing the brash outside in order to later juxtapose beneath. Next one I made out of all of them. Shit. Probably like You're From Somewhere, which is another song that's out now, which is, it's another like similar, like the way that I see Nemo Lakes in general is Nemo Lakes is a character where I put my ego on a pedestal in order to juxtapose the tenderness beneath, where it's like, it is that acting hard in order to show like the other part, the real human element below. You're From Somewhere is addressing kind of that dichotomy of a lot of ways that I act. And You're From Somewhere I Can't Hide From, this person that I try to be, is like, there's a reason for it. And it's something that I need to confront and change who I am as an individual in order to be who I really am as a person.
How do you think that process started? Like you realizing that? Because that's very self-aware, man. Like I feel like there's people who go through their entire lives not realizing that they're putting on a front and trying to be somebody they're not.
I don't know. I think my biggest problem, like, this turned into a fucking therapy session, but my biggest problem for a lot of my life was always, I moved around so much, and every single time that I moved, like I was like, oh, people got tired of me. I'm going to try to like change who I am. And I change a school like every couple years, and every couple years, like, oh, I'm going to try to do something different. And I'm like, and I end up like, Jesus, like I spent like 18 years of my life, like trying to conform to someone to try to make other people happy. And I was like, okay, like I took that idea of the person that I was trying to be and like conceptualized it and just decided to be myself.
That makes a lot of sense given the context that you were moving around a lot.
Yeah.
Because like each group of people that you happen to meet in a new city or a new town, they aren't going to like the same version of you, you know?
Yeah. And
because they're from different places.
I ended up getting like just hella imposter syndrome for like all my life of like I remember like when I moved to Canada, I was like, oh, I'm going to try to act cool. And like I started like just like swearing a lot and like being this like person that I'm not. And then people fucking hated me because I was like a fucking idiot.
Because you weren't being you.
Yeah, I wasn't being me. I was like super. And like, I think I try to approach life now with a very extreme sense of genuineness. Yeah. Which it took me like a long time to come to that.
It comes across, bro.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And that's my whole philosophy of like, I'm going to try to be exactly who I am. I'm not going to try to like front anything, you know? And yeah, that's essentially that. But yeah, I could go into the rest of the songs, but it is an 11 song project. So I don't necessarily want to go
of
crazy.
Course.
But yeah, I would just say in general, each one, if you like lyrically is a very, very intense look at a specific time period inside of the entire 2.5 year period. Yeah. And like I have so many other songs that I made along this timeline, but like these 11 songs are like specific for this project.
Can I ask you why you're moving around so much?
Dude, just like my dad, whenever like his like job, he'd like change jobs or like whatever, we just end up moving. And my mom really likes flipping houses too. So it was the type of thing like before she like got with my dad, she was a like interior designer, so she'd always get super bored. It's like, I need a new project. And like we ended up like straight up like my family moves, like if you could ask anyone like in my life, it's stupid how the amount of like my parents like move houses every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. When I was looking at like your discography and like, cause I assumed like, I mean, all your covers kind of play off of a certain theme. I assume the album cover is probably going to be like similar to that, right? Or no, I saw it actually. It was on your Instagram. It was the one with all of those, right? The grid?
Yeah, so it's like, it's a grid.
Was that, because now that you say that, that's what I was thinking about while you were talking. It makes more sense to me because are those meant to like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just what I'm guessing, what I'm gathering. Are those like trying to like exemplify certain versions of yourself? Or no? Something along those lines?
So more than anything, so the way that I describe it, it's an 11-track album, which includes an intro, an outro, and an interlude. Outside of those, the intro, the outro, and the interlude, there's 8 core tracks to the album. There's 8 photos in that series.
Oh.
And so each one, in order, represents each individual track and like the themes in the track.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so each, like for example, like each of the single covers are those are 4 of the 8 individual photos, and the other 4 represent the other 4 main tracks that haven't came out yet. So that's like, they're all using my clothes and stuff. And they all represent certain things that are themes within the song. But yeah, they all are like essentially both personifying the song as well as like a version of myself that I'm talking about in the song.
Everything seems really intentional.
Yeah, I try to be fully like I think a lot.
Yeah, I could tell. When did like you fully accept the fact that you wanted this to be a concept album? Like, did you make these songs and then fit them into a concept, or were they made with a concept in mind?
Dude, I think like it was a combination of the two. I don't think I'll ever make a project that isn't a concept album.
Yeah.
I like, that's the albums that I enjoy. And so I always like, I'm very much a snob of like, oh, first time you listen to an album, like listen to it front to back, like no skips. And so I'm like, I want to make an album that's going to be that. And eventually like it dawned on me the concept of the album, and the couple songs that I had written before, I was like, okay, these can fit in. And then it was all just like built it from there. Yeah.
Wow. So we talked about how you like felt like you grew as a person through the album, which makes a lot of sense. How do you feel like you grew musically in those 2 years? Like, cause I mean, that's a very, very long time, man. Like, I imagine like you just got better in every fashion. But what do you think are the biggest things you like picked up musically while making the project?
Dude, I think the biggest thing is I picked up just like a formula of how I personally make music.
Like a process.
Like, yeah, I have the full process, and I think that you could tell a little bit from the singles, but you'll definitely be able to tell in the context of the whole album that I think that there's a unique set of sounds. Like the album itself is very much very wide range of different things. Like some of it's very rocky, some of it's very hip hoppy, some of it's very hyper pop. But there is a certain texture that I think that is signature in my sound, that's what I learned how to create over the course of 2 years.
Yeah, so like you kind of refined a project or a process rather.
Yeah.
Did you like when you were refining that process, did you find that it came to a similar genre result, or would you have the same process and that resulted in different genres? Because it sounds like you're very multi-genre on this project.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think like, I think it's like similar to like this fucking Rick Rubin interview that came out pretty recently, where it's just like I am very confident in my taste, and it might result in a different genre, a completely different sounding thing, but like I'm confident in the taste that I have that it will turn into something that ends up fitting this texture that I'm going for.
Did you ever feel boxed in from a genre lens? Like, were you ever like, I want to make this cohesively sounding with one specific genre, or no?
No, that's why I deliberately released Piggy Bank first, because I wanted like people to be like, oh, this is this white rapper guy. Like, what is this guy doing? Like before, it like you'll be able to find it on SoundCloud or something. I made like very lo-fi shit, and I was like, I'm gonna come out after not releasing anything for 2 years and have this like super hard like pitch down vocals rap song, talking about like putting a bitch in a headlock. But yeah, that was kind of the way that I did it. And then the very next song I put out is post-punky, and then the next song that I put out is like very rock. And so I wanted like the first 3 or 4 songs to come out to, it might be a bit polarizing, because people that like Piggy Bank probably won't like the other ones even close to as much, but I did it on purpose because I don't want to be boxed in.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like if you establish that early enough in your career, it gets to a place where nobody can box you in.
Yeah, like I mean, like Project 2, I want to go like way more electronic.
Yeah,
like I have like I want like my Kid A.
Oh wow, to be number 2.
Yeah, like I have a whole like, I think like I want to be an artist that changes over time completely. Like that's why I like artists like Radiohead, and I like artists like Beck that are like, not that I listen to them all the time, but I respect how they just have no regard for their previous work. They're like, this is what I'm doing now. And I really like that. That's very unapologetically artistic.
I agree.
Yeah.
But that's really funny, because I feel like you are very unapologetically artistic, but you're also very aware of like what you need to do to like roll out a project. I feel like,
Yeah.
like I don't know, because I mean, just like following like you on social media and like watching kind of how you move, like it seems like you're very deliberate with the rollout of this project. I feel like that's very intentional, and I feel like the best artists who like, you know, and I'm obviously including you in this, but I think like artists who become great realize that what they have to do to get their music heard, but they don't sacrifice their artistry.
Yeah, it's the toughest part. And like with me right now, like it's all a solo project. Like I don't have a manager. I don't have it's just me right now. So it's like it's a very
That's super interesting.
Yeah, it's a very tough of like, okay, I need to think of exactly what I have to do from every single perspective in order to not sacrifice my artistic vision, but like make this work. And so it's like, what can I do to make this work? And I spend so many waking hours of like, okay, like as one person individual, what can I do to push this forward, even if it's just a little bit today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super, wow. But that's crazy. Because you almost have like, I feel like you look at the way you're marketing your music and the way you're trying to roll out your album in a very like, in a way that makes sense, and almost like the way that a manager would. So it's impressive that you kind of have both those sides. Is that like a USC thing, you think? You think you could attribute that to like...
For sure.
Working, yeah.
For sure. I think it's just I've seen my peers do this shit for years, and I was like, I like that. I don't like that. I like that. I'm like, okay. I just learning from other people's mistakes and other people's triumphs. And I don't think that's biting. That's just being fucking smart, dude.
Yeah.
And I spent years like making this shit, and like when I release it's going to be good. I've just years just observing my peers.
I think that's so smart too, because like when you have an album like this, like, and you said you put 2 full years of your creation into it, it's got to be terrifying, because if it doesn't do what you want it to do,
yeah,
that's that.
Well, yeah, well that's that. But I don't know. I think I'm confident in the work. It like, I don't necessarily, if it doesn't get millions of plays, if it doesn't do all that, like I'm okay. Like I am at the point now where I'm so confident in my art, I'm willing to die on my sword. You know, like if it like the reward for being an artist is like dying on your sword. I think you know, you can like that's at the end of the day. I think what an artist is being uncompromising and being like, this is what I want to do, and I'm willing to do that.
Was it hard to get to that point?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, I don't know, I'm kind of at a point where like I'm starting to get there.
Yeah.
And I feel like one thing I struggle with a lot is like going back and forth in I was having a conversation with my friend George yesterday. Shout out to George. A very, very incredibly talented graphic designer. He does all he's part of Peachtree Rascals. He does all their design and stuff.
Fire.
Great guy. But I was talking to George yesterday, and he was telling me about, he's been like in a creative rut. And we were just riffing on that, talking about it. And one thing he said that like really stuck out to me was that like there comes a certain point where you have to be like uncompromising with what you enjoy. I was like, I think that makes a lot of sense, because I was kind of telling him that like I'm at a place where it's like I sometimes get so invested in like, this has got to do good, this interview's got to do great, this has got to grow the company, whatever, that like I forget why I started this shit in the first place, and it's because I'm in love with this. You know?
And like I said before, I think like the biggest reward for your hard work is living and dying by it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's, if this is what the shit you want to do, you fucking do it, dude. And yeah, I don't know where I'm going after that, but I mean, like if it doesn't work out, then it's back to the fucking drawing board, dude.
You're gonna try again, yeah.
Try again. I mean, I think if you really just keep fucking going after a certain amount of time, it will happen.
Do you feel like there was a moment where you were kind of like standing on the ledge, like kind of like looking and like, oh, like I need to take this jump fully into my artistry?
100%. There was
were you anticipating it?
Yeah, dude. I used to work at I'm not allowed to disclose necessarily where, but I used to work at a very prominent music studio doing engineering for a very prominent person. And I was working in this studio, and I was working with all the artists I've ever looked up to, and I was in the studio and I was like, dude, I could fucking feel it right here. And I didn't like jump into the artist. I was still making music for myself at the time, but I like hadn't released in a couple years. I was like focusing on my career. I was like, I'm gonna be this studio manager, engineer guy, and like I was just so close to all these people I looked up to. And then at one point, I like hit a low, and I was like, I was broke, and at some point the job I fucking hated all the work I had to do when I felt like I wasn't getting anything out of it, and I was like, I'm gonna jump into the artist thing, and I just quit the job that if I told you would be like, wow, why the fuck did you quit that? And then fucking started waiting tables and trying to be an artist. Yeah.
I've been there. I am there.
Yeah.
I feel that, man.
Yeah, dude.
That's crazy. So what do you think like was the ultimate, like was there a question that you asked yourself, or like did you kind of give yourself an ultimatum like I'm going to jump because of this? Like did you get to a point where you're like I just can't do this anymore, or was it like
dude,
I need to
I was in the, like, reiterating, like I was in the room with everyone I've ever looked up to over the course of like 6 months. And I was seeing it and I was like, y'all are so good, but I think I'm on this level too. Like I can do this. And it was seeing the people that I really look up to doing it in front of me, and the way they do it, I'm like, this is something that I can have for myself.
It's like an unrelenting self-confidence.
Yeah.
That's something that I think is really important if you want to be an artist. You have to be fully confident but not arrogant.
Yeah.
And it's like those two things can exist in the same place, I think. But you have to find a way to like kind of make them merge, you know? It's like I'm going to be so confident in my art that like I don't have to be arrogant.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Last thing I wanted to ask you, because I know you gotta skedaddle pretty soon.
Yeah.
What's like your biggest goal for the project? Like what's like your best case scenario? Like what are your main intentions? Like what do you really, really want to get out of this release?
Yeah.
Or I guess vice versa. Like what would you want other people to get out of this release? That's a better question.
Okay. Yeah. So the biggest thing for this album is like it's dedicated to my homie. I just want to have it out. I want it to help people that might be going through a similar thing as myself. I want to help people that are fucking going through it, and like being the biggest thing that he harped on, which is something that I have in a lot of the release materials I haven't put out yet, but he after he died, they found a note in his desk of like what he thought his life purpose was. It wasn't like a whatever note or anything. This was something he wrote for a class like months before. And it ended with like, my purpose is to bring people together. And I think that that's something that I'm really trying to harp on with the project, is I want to be able to bring together a community, and my purpose is to be this welcoming body and this person that people can feel comfort in. And that is something that I'm looking forward to get to out of the release. That's what I want other people to get out of it. For me, myself, I'd love to start creating a community, and at least the music goals and stuff, I'd love to just be able to, this project to start giving me material where I could play live and like build a community in person. That's my whole goal with anything, is to bring people together.
That's beautiful, man. I love that. Nemo Lakes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate you, man. I'm super excited for the project. Very happy for you.
Dude,
I can feel the excitement, and
Yeah.
it makes me happy, man.
Yeah,
so
dude.
I'm really excited for you.
I'm so stoked, dude.
Tell
Thank you for having me.
Of course, brother. Tell them where they can get the album. They can follow you. They can stream all your stuff.
Yeah, so my @ on Instagram is @Nemo Lakes, NEMOLAKES. The album will be anywhere that you listen to music. Period. Hey, if you're in LA too, February 2nd, El Cid, we got a free release party. We got
Hell
some
yeah.
homies DJing. It's gonna be a super sick time. Hope to see you there.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Yes, sir.
Music matters.